Do you hear the music playing right now? Or do you remember the background track of the last video you scrolled past? It feels completely normal to you, but it is not. Every single piece of audio you are consuming today is tuned to a standard that was intentionally forced onto the world. This isn't a theory. It is a physical reality happening to your body this very second. Sound isn't just something you hear. It's a force that alters the water inside your cells and shapes your nervous system. And right now, your body is being forced to vibrate to a frequency that doesn't belong to you. To see how deep this goes, you have to understand what silence actually is. Real silence isn't empty space. It's like a clean, untouched field. The moment a sound enters that space, it leaves a physical footprint. Imagine taking a flat metal plate, scattering regular sand across it, and playing a single pure note. The sand doesn't just blow away. It instantly snaps into a perfect, beautiful geometric shape. If you change the sound, the shape changes. This proves that sound isn't just something you hear. It is a physical force that literally builds and shapes the physical world around us. It is the invisible blueprint holding our entire reality together.
This passage details the exact ritual. It aligns perfectly with the symbols on the wall.
Now consider the biological design. Your body is made of roughly 70% water. When a frequency passes through you, it forces the water molecules in your cells to mirror that exact same geometry. For thousands of years, human instruments, ancient chants, and the natural resonance of the earth itself vibrated in a single, unbroken harmony. This was the 432 Hz tuning scale. It wasn't chosen by cultural accident. It is a mathematical fact that this specific frequency aligns perfectly with the spiral of your DNA, the movement of the planets, and the natural geometry of creation. When you listen to audio tuned to this scale, your nervous system relaxes. Your biology enters a state of absolute coherence, and your internal geometry remains unbroken. You are literally in sync with the cosmos. But a population that is perfectly in tune with nature is impossible to subjugate. If you want to trap a conscious species inside an artificial matrix, you don't need physical walls. You just need to alter the frequency of the room they are living in. You need to introduce a subtle, constant friction that keeps them in a permanent state of survival mode, cutting them off from their higher sensory centers. This entire investigative broadcast is the complete exposure of that cosmic hijack. We are going to trace this weaponized timeline from its ancient origins straight into the modern era. We will break down how the architects of this system took the world off its natural tuning and forced it onto the artificial 440 Hz scale, creating a silent, energetic gridlock that dictates how you think, feel, and perceive reality right now in this very timeline. Before we expose the historical transition, we must first understand the pristine code that was broken. In the next phase of this blueprint, we are going to step directly into the sacred mathematics of the 3, 6, and 9 cipher. We will analyze how the primordial grid was built, how ancient temples were physically constructed to amplify this organic resonance, and how your own biological avatar was engineered to function as a cosmic receiver. The architects of the Matrix knew that if you control the sound, you control the geometry. And if you control the geometry, you control the consciousness. It is time to look at the math, strip away the noise, and understand the true architecture of the prison. This is the geometry of silence, and the initiation begins right now. To truly understand how our frequency was hijacked, we have to look at the master key of the Matrix itself. You have probably heard the famous phrase that, if you only knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, you would have a data key to the entire universe. But what does that actually mean in this very timeline? It is not a piece of abstract poetry or a mystical riddle for philosophers to debate. It is a literal engineering manual for the physical plane. Look at the basic math of our reality. When you break down the geometry of creation, you find that every single shape, pattern, and cellular division follows a strict mathematical system. If you take a cell and duplicate it, it doubles. 1 becomes 2. 2 becomes 4. 4 becomes 8. 8 becomes 16, which breaks down to 7. 16 becomes 32, which breaks down to 5. 32 becomes 64, which breaks down to 1. This is the doubling circuit of physical creation. It is the code that builds your physical avatar, the tissue of your organs, and the structure of your material world. But notice something incredible about this sequence. In this entire physical doubling circuit, 3 numbers are completely missing. The 3, the 6, and the 9 never appear. They do not belong to the physical sequence. They sit entirely above it, acting as the invisible vectors of force that govern how matter behaves from the higher realms. Think of the 3 and the 6 as the twin poles of an invisible electromagnetic battery. They are the positive and the negative forces that create the friction necessary for physical life to manifest. The 3 governs one side, and the 6 governs the other. They sway back and forth, dominating the physical circuit. But what governs the 3 and the 6? The number 9. The 9 is the absolute node. It is the ether. It is the singular point of unity that watches over the duality of the 3 and the 6. It is the unmovable center around which the entire matrix revolves. When you translate this pristine mathematical cipher into sound frequencies, you find something that completely shatters the narrative of modern history. If you look at the original solfeggio scale, every single pure tone mathematically resolves back to the 3, the 6, or the 9. 174 Hz breaks down to 3. 285 Hz breaks down to 6. 396 Hz breaks down to 9. And the 432 Hz scale we talked about in the last chapter? 4 plus 3 plus 2 equals 9. It is the ultimate frequency of the absolute node. It is the tone of the uncorrupted ether. When you play a sound that aligns with the 9, you are not just listening to a pleasant arrangement of notes. You are broadcasting a mathematical command that forces the 70% water inside your body to arrange itself into a state of perfect geometric coherence. Your cells recognize the code. Your DNA unfolds. Your nervous system drops its defenses because it recognizes the voice of its original architect. This is why ancient temples, acoustic chambers, and sacred structures all over the earth were built using these exact numerical proportions. They were not monuments to dead gods. They were physical amplifiers designed to catch the cosmic frequency of the 9 and distribute it directly into the human biology. But the architects of the modern matrix understood this math perfectly. They knew that if human consciousness remained anchored to the 3, the 6, and the 9, the human mind would remain completely unshakable. It would be impossible to harvest loosh from a population that is mathematically unified with the cosmos. So, they did the unthinkable. They intentionally shifted the baseline frequency of the entire world away from the natural order. By forcing the world onto the 440 Hz tuning scale, they broke the connection to the 9. 4 plus 4 plus 0 equals 8. They dropped humanity out of the higher etheric realm and locked us entirely within the dense, physical doubling circuit of the material plane. They took a perfectly tuned cosmic receiver and intentionally threw it out of alignment. Instead of vibrating to the harmonic code of creation, your body was forced to vibrate to a synthetic rhythm designed to cause permanent inner division. To truly understand how deep this sonic trap goes, we have to look up from our individual bodies and look at the clock of the cosmos itself. The architects who forced the 440 Hz frequency onto humanity didn't just guess at these numbers. They didn't just pick them out of a hat. They synchronized their artificial scale with the massive macro rhythms of space and time to ensure the human avatar would be entirely locked out of the cosmic grid. This macro rhythm is what astronomers call the precession of the equinoxes. It is the slow, deliberate wobble of the Earth on its axis that shapes the history of our entire reality. Think of the Earth as a massive spinning top. As it rotates, it doesn't stay perfectly straight. It traces a massive, invisible circle in the heavens that takes exactly 25,920 years to complete. This immense cycle is the true calendar of the world, and it is divided into 12 cosmic months that we call astrological ages. Each single age lasts for exactly 2,160 years. Now, let's do the real math that they hide from you in the textbooks. If you multiply 2,160 years by 2, you get 4,320. Drop the 0, and you are staring directly at 432. The natural tuning of human consciousness is not an arbitrary choice made by musicians. It is the exact mathematical fractal of a single cosmic heartbeat. Let's push the math even deeper into the architecture. If you break down a single day on Earth, you find 24 hours, which contains 86,400 seconds. If you divide 86,400 by 2, you land precisely back at 43,200. Again, the fractal of 432 is woven into the very fabric of how time passes on this physical plane. The Sun itself has a radius of roughly 432,000 miles. This means that when you are operating on the 432 Hz tuning, your body is literally vibrating in a flawless, direct harmony with the scale of the Sun, the rhythm of the day, and the great 25,000-year clock of the heavens. You are structurally anchored to the natural timeline of creation. But what happens when the matrix architects shift the entire world to 440 Hz? 4 plus 4 plus 0 equals 8. The number 8 is the loop. It is the symbol of infinity bent into a closed circuit. By forcing your body to vibrate to the 8, They pulled humanity completely out of the nine, the frequency of the cosmic clock. They created a profound, continuous desynchronization between the human receiver and the transmission of the cosmos. It is like trying to listen to a radio station when your dial is turned just 1 millimeter away from the true signal. All you get is background static, friction, and confusion. This artificial friction is exactly how they harvest loosh on a planetary scale. When a human body is forced out of sync with the natural cosmic timeline, the natural system cannot rest. The cells cannot achieve true geometric coherence. The body enters a state of permanent, low-level survival anxiety, making it incredibly easy to manipulate, drain, and control. You become completely dependent on external survival structures because your internal connection to the cosmos has been muted. This isn't just about music history. It is about absolute temporal control. By changing the frequency of the world, they altered how you experience time itself. They locked us into a dense, repetitive loop where we are completely blind to the larger shifts happening in the celestial matrix. But the original blueprint cannot be erased. The math of the precession remains written in the stars, waiting to be read. In the next module, we are going to drop back down to Earth and look at the planetary heartbeat itself, the Schumann resonance, to show you how this synthetic grid locks over the very ground you walk on. The initiation is expanding, and the prison walls are becoming completely visible. Now that we have decoded the massive clock of the cosmos, we need to drop back down to the very ground you are walking on. The architects of the 440 Hz matrix didn't just disconnect you from the stars. They physically grounded the trap into the Earth itself. To understand how they did this, you have to understand that the planet you live on is not a dead rock floating in space. It is a living, breathing, electromagnetic engine. And just like your body, this planet has a literal heartbeat. In the scientific community, this is known as the Schumann resonance. It is the global electromagnetic frequency that vibrates within the cavity between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere. For as long as human beings have existed on this plane, our biology has been completely anchored to this natural planetary pulse. This frequency vibrates at a baseline of roughly 7.83 Hz. When your brainwaves enter a deep state of meditation, relaxation, or creative flow, they drop precisely into this alpha and theta wave territory, matching the 7.83 Hz rhythm of the Earth. This is not a poetic metaphor. Your nervous system is structurally engineered to plug into the planet to recharge, heal, and maintain biological order. When you are in sync with the planetary heartbeat, your internal battery is fully connected to the source. Now, let's look at the mathematical trap.
If you take that natural planetary pulse of 7.83 Hz and apply the sacred geometry of the music scale, you find a direct, flawless bridge to the 432 Hz tuning. They are part of the exact same harmonic family. When you listen to audio tuned to 432 Hz, you are creating a vibrational cord that ties your brainwaves, your cellular water, and the electromagnetic field of the Earth into a single, unified circuit. This is why walking barefoot on the Earth, or sitting in deep silence in nature, instantly resets your system. You are stepping out of the artificial grid and plugging back into the organic wireframe of creation. But look at what happens when you step back into the modern city. Every radio tower, every Wi-Fi router, every electrical grid, and every piece of mainstream media you consume is blasting a synthetic layer over the environment. By establishing 440 Hz as the international standard for every song, broadcast, and siren, the architects built a literal frequency fence over the surface of the planet. They introduced a loud, aggressive static that drowns out the quiet, natural pulse of the Earth. 440 Hz is a jarring, unnatural rhythm that acts like a jamming signal on your biological receiver. It forces your brainwaves out of the 7.83 Hz alpha state and locks them into a high-stress beta state. This is the hidden mechanics of the terrestrial cage. You don't need physical bars to keep a population from waking up if you can keep their nervous systems in a perpetual state of low-level alarm. By broadcasting this artificial scale across the entire globe, they created a massive, automated, loosh harvesting field. Your body is constantly burning energy just trying to process the sonic friction in the background, leaving you too exhausted, distracted, and drained to notice the higher signals of the cosmos. They have overwritten the planetary heartbeat with an industrial pulse. In our next module, we are going to look directly at the human avatar itself to show you the exact biological damage this shift causes, proving that your DNA is being systematically muted by the very sounds you love. The prison is loud, but once you hear the friction, you can choose to unplug.
To truly see how deep this sonic trap goes, we have to look inside our own skin and decode the human avatar. Your body is not a random collection of flesh and bone. It is a highly sophisticated, organic television antenna. Your nervous system, your spine, and the water inside your cells are engineered to receive, translate, and broadcast frequency signals from the cosmos. When you are tuned to the natural 432 Hz scale, this biological antenna operates at absolute peak performance. Your internal geometry is flawless, and your energy centers are completely wide open. This is what the ancients called the pristine state of the avatar. Let's look at the literal biology of this design. At the very center of your brain sits a small, pine cone-shaped gland known as the pineal gland. For thousands of years, esoteric traditions have called it the third eye, the physical seat of human consciousness, and the bridge to higher dimensions. But from a purely anatomical standpoint, this gland is a master acoustic receiver. It is filled with tiny, floating calcite crystals that are highly sensitive to electromagnetic and sonic frequencies. When you expose your brain to the natural 432 Hz scale, these crystals vibrate in a perfect harmonic chord with the planetary heartbeat we talked about in the last chapter. This vibration activates the gland, opening your internal vision and allowing your mind to perceive beyond the dense physical illusions of the matrix. Now look at your spine. Your backbone is not just a structural support system. It is a 24-stage energetic ladder designed to step down cosmic information into your physical organs. When a harmonic wave passes up this column, it acts like a bow drawing across the strings of a perfectly tuned cello. Your DNA strands, which are shaped like literal double helix telephone wires, respond directly to this resonance. In the scientific community, they have discovered that DNA actually emits and absorbs packets of light known as biophotons. When you are exposed to 432 Hz audio, your DNA unfolds completely, increasing its light emission and maximizing its ability to repair your cellular walls. You are operating as a walking symphony of absolute coherence. But what happens when the architects blast this biological antenna with the artificial 440 Hz scale? The entire symphony instantly breaks down. Because 440 Hz creates a subtle, unnatural friction, it causes the tiny calcite crystals in your pineal gland to lock up and calcify under the stress. Instead of vibrating freely to catch higher dimensional data, your internal receiver is completely muted by background static. Your spine ceases to function as a clear conductor of energy, and your DNA strands begin to contract, shutting down their light emissions and locking your biology into a dense, restricted survival mode. They have taken a masterpiece of cosmic engineering and turned it into a broken instrument. By forcing your avatar to process this synthetic rhythm every single day through your headphones, television screens, and city environments, they ensure that your biological antenna can only pick up low-frequency signals. You are trapped in a loop of worry, fatigue, and material survival, completely blind to the higher cosmic information waiting to be received by your cells. This is the ultimate objective of the frequency fence. They have closed your third eye by changing the soundtrack of your world. This concludes our look at the original, pristine design of human consciousness. You now know the math of the cosmic clock, the pulse of the planetary engine, and the architecture of your own biological receiver. The organic blueprint is clear. In our next module, we are stepping directly into Act 2, where we will rip open the historical archives to expose the exact moment the trap was sprung. We will name the institutions, the military contracts, and the dark operations that intentionally broke the musical scale to lock humanity in the dark. The foundation is laid, and the exposure of the sonic hijack begins right now. Now that you understand the pristine biological and cosmic blueprint that was stolen from us, we have to look at the cold reality of how the trap was actually sprung. This wasn't a gradual, accidental shift in human culture. It was a cold, calculated institutional operation, executed by the highest levels of terrestrial control. To see the exact moment the scale was broken, we have to rip open the historical archives of the 20th century and look at the dark intersection of wartime politics, military contracts, and corporate social engineering. This is the paper trail of the global sonic hijack. And it starts with the weaponization of human psychology.
We cannot allow them to alter what Verdi fought so hard to protect. This scale is the very architecture of the human voice.
For centuries, musicians across Europe and the ancient world resisted any attempt to standardize music to a rigid, unnatural scale. Master composers like Giuseppe Verdi fought aggressively to keep the tuning anchored to the natural resonance of 432 Hz, calling it the proper standard for the human voice and biological harmony. But as the world entered the industrial era, shadowy bureaucratic structures saw a massive opportunity. They realized that if you could standardize the music of the world, you could standardize the minds of the people listening to it. The primary force behind this push was not a collection of artists or musicians. It was the Rockefeller Foundation, working in direct tandem with the military-industrial complex.
The director sends his regards. As for the funding, gentlemen, you have nothing to worry about.
In the late 1930s, massive amounts of corporate funding were poured into studying how specific sound frequencies could manipulate human behavior, control crowd psychology, and induce emotional states of panic, compliance, and anxiety. They discovered that while 432 Hz induced emotional stability and mental clarity, pushing the tuning up to 440 Hz created a subtle, subconscious state of tension in the human nervous system.
Your academic freedom is over, Doctor. We require stability. Sign the recommendation, or you will disappear into a deeper, less pleasant standard.
In 1939, under heavy pressure from these corporate and military researchers, the British Standards Institution officially recommended 440 Hz as the international tuning standard. This happened right on the brink of the Second World War. At the exact moment global populations were being prepared for mass trauma and total psychological subjugation. The final blow to our natural frequency came in 1953, during a closed-door conference in London.
We must lock in this resolution. The 440 Hz mandate is now final.
Representatives from across the globe gathered to officially lock 440 Hz as the absolute international standard for all recorded music, broadcasting, and instrument manufacturing.
432! 440 is evil! Give us the godly frequency!
Musicians from countries all over France and Germany protested fiercely, pointing out that this synthetic scale caused immense physical strain on vocalists and completely ruined the harmonic geometry of traditional instruments. Their warnings were completely ignored. The corporate media machinery took over, ensuring that every factory, radio station, and record label on the planet adopted the 440 Hz scale. Within a single generation, the organic blueprint was completely erased from public memory. This is the historical disconnect. By forcing every song on the radio, every television theme, and every streaming track into this rigid industrial tuning, they cut humanity off from the natural grid of the planet. They didn't have to ban ancient knowledge. They just made it impossible for your body to resonate with it. Every time you turn on a modern track today, you are listening to a frequency that was selected by military-industrial researchers specifically for its ability to cause micro-friction in your cells. They have turned our global art form into an invisible weapon of mass containment. In our next module, we are going to dive straight into the physics of anxiety to show you exactly how this synthetic tuning triggers the survival centers of your brain on a daily basis. The trap was engineered in the boardroom, but it is executed in your headphones every single second. Now that you know the exact history of how the 440 Hz standard was forced onto the world, we need to look at what this change is physically doing to your brain right now. The military-industrial researchers who pushed for this standard didn't just want to control the music industry. They wanted to control the physical chemistry of your body. They understood a branch of science that is completely hidden from public schools. The physics of cellular anxiety. When you understand how a discordant frequency interacts with human biology, you realize that modern stress is not an accident. It is a calculated reaction to the soundtrack of our world. To see how this works, we have to look at how your brain processes sound waves. Your brain communicates using electrical impulses known as brainwave frequencies. When you are relaxed, creative, or deeply connected to your intuition, your brain operates in alpha or theta waves, which naturally align with the organic 432 Hz scale. Pushing the global standard up to 440 Hz introduces a tiny, constant microfriction. This frequency doesn't fit into the natural geometric grid of your cells. It acts like a jagged edge rubbing against your nervous system. Your brain interprets this microscopic friction as an immediate threat. It triggers the amygdala, the ancient survival center of your brain, and forces your brainwaves into a high-state beta frequency. This high beta state is the exact frequency of survival mode. When your brain is trapped in this state, your body shifts into fight or flight. It begins to flood your bloodstream with low levels of cortisol and adrenaline. Under normal circumstances, this response is only supposed to happen when you are facing immediate physical danger. It is designed to save your life. But because the music, the media, and the background noise of our modern cities are constantly broadcasting this artificial frequency, your body never gets the signal to turn the survival response off. You are living in a permanent state of low-level biological alarm, even when you are just sitting on your couch trying to relax. Let's look at what this permanent alarm does to your blood chemistry. In a healthy, coherent state, your blood cells repel each other slightly, allowing them to flow freely through your veins and deliver oxygen to your organs. When you expose your blood to discordant frequencies like 440 Hz, the electrical charge on the cellular walls drops. Your blood cells begin to clump together in dense, sticky formations. This slows down oxygen delivery to your brain, causes chronic inflammation, and keeps your physical body in a state of exhaustion. They don't need to poison your food or air to drain your energy, if they can use a song on the radio to change the fluid dynamics of your blood. This is the physics of anxiety. By taking humanity off the natural scale of creation, they created a population that is physically incapable of achieving deep peace. You are constantly burning through your vital energy, just trying to process the sonic static in the background. This leaves you completely dependent on synthetic stimulants, pharmaceutical overrides, and external distractions just to get through the day. They have weaponized the airwaves to ensure that your avatar stays locked in a survival loop. In our next module, we are going to look at the massive societal gridlock this causes, showing how this constant internal stress is used to manipulate the behavior of entire populations at the exact same time. The scale was broken to break your peace. But once you understand the physics, you can change the station. Once you understand the physics of cellular anxiety, you can begin to see how this hidden mechanism is scaled up to control entire societies. The architects of the 440 Hz matrix did not create this system just to agitate you on an individual level. They created it to manufacture a collective nervous system gridlock. When millions of human beings are forced to live, work, and commute inside the exact same discordant frequency field, their individual fields merge into a massive global network of stress. This collective field acts like an invisible electromagnetic ceiling that prevents human consciousness from rising above a very specific baseline. Look at the structure of our modern cities. Every crowded street, every corporate office tower, and every concrete apartment complex is a high-density zone of frequency friction. We are taught to believe that the exhaustion and irritability we feel in these spaces are simply the natural side effects of modern economic life. We blame the traffic, the high rent, and the demanding schedules. But the real gridlock is taking place at a biological level within your nervous system. By flooding these high-density urban zones with the 440 Hz standard through public broadcasting, commercial audio, and industrial machinery, they keep the entire population operating on a survival frequency. Let's look at what happens to a society when its collective nervous system is locked into a survival frequency. In a natural, coherent state, the human nervous system acts like a clear channel for empathy, high-level intuition, and creative critical thinking. When you are operating on the 432 Hz scale, your field naturally expands, allowing you to connect with the people and environment around you on a deeper level. But when you are forced into the 440 Hz gridlock, your nervous system instantly contracts. It goes into defensive mode. When an entire population is in defensive mode, empathy drops. Tribalism rises, and people become hyper-reactive to the slightest perceived threats. This collective contraction is exactly what the managers of the Matrix require to maintain control. A population trapped in a nervous system gridlock is incredibly easy to herd, divide, and manipulate. Because their internal batteries are constantly being drained by the background sonic static, people lose the cognitive energy required to question authority, look past surface-level media narratives, or investigate the true nature of their reality. They become automated units of production, moving through mechanical survival loops every single day, without ever understanding why they feel a deep, constant sense of inner disconnection. They are trying to find peace in a world where the very airwaves are designed to prevent it. This is the hidden architecture of societal containment. You do not need to deploy physical forces on the streets to keep a population compliant if you can use an invisible acoustic grid to lock their biology into a submissive, defensive state. They have turned our cities into massive, automated frequency traps that harvest the vital energy of humanity day in and day out. But this gridlock only works as long as you remain completely unconscious of the rhythm you are running on. In our next module, we are going to look at the exact science of entrainment to show you how your brain is mechanically forced to sync up with these external broadcasting towers against your will. The gridlock is heavy, but once you map out the trap, you can begin the process of reclaiming your internal scale. To truly understand how this invisible cage holds its grip on you, we have to look at a fundamental law of physics that governs how tracking systems interact with living biology. This is the science of entrainment. Entrainment is a natural mechanical process where two vibrating bodies will automatically lock into a single shared rhythm if they are left in the same room long enough. If you take a room full of 100-year-old grandfather clocks, start their pendulums swinging at completely random times, and walk away, something incredible happens. Within a few hours, the tiny vibrations traveling through the floor and walls will force every single pendulum to swing in perfect, absolute unison. The more powerful frequency always forces the weaker frequency to match its rhythm. Now look at the biological application of this physical law. Your brain is a collection of billions of firing neurons, creating a weak electromagnetic field that fluctuates constantly based on your thoughts and environment. Your heart is an even larger electromagnetic oscillator, pumping out a field that can be measured several feet away from your chest.
These are fragile, living rhythms.
When you walk into a modern environment, your body is instantly submerged in a massive, high-powered sea of synthetic frequencies. Because the matrix standardizes every song, every television broadcast, and every commercial stream to the 440 Hz scale, it acts like the dominant grandfather clock in the room. Through the law of entrainment, your nervous system is mechanically forced to abandon its natural rhythm and lock into theirs. This is not a matter of personal willpower or conscious choice. Your brain cannot simply decide to ignore the frequency of the room it is trapped in. The moment you put on your headphones or step into a shopping mall where music is playing, the physical pressure of those sound waves hits your eardrums and triggers an automatic biological synchronization. Your brain waves are forcefully pulled out of the natural 7.83 Hz alpha state and driven straight into the chaotic, high-stress beta state of the 440 Hz standard. They are literally hijacking the control panel of your mind by using a dominant acoustic signal to overwrite your internal electrical system. Let's look at the dark intent behind this mechanical synchronization. The managers of this reality understand that if they can entrain your brainwaves to an artificial discordant frequency, they can completely dictate your emotional baseline. When you are entrained to the 8, the loop of the 440 Hz scale, your subconscious mind becomes incredibly suggestible. You become highly receptive to commercial programming, political polarization, and consumer anxieties because your internal radar has been completely blinded by the dominant background static. They don't need to force compliance through physical laws when they can use the natural physics of sound to make your own brain mirror the architecture of the prison. This is the hidden mechanics of entrainment. It is an automated system of tracking and containment that operates completely below your conscious awareness every single second of the day. They have turned the natural laws of acoustic harmony into a weapon designed to flatten human consciousness and keep it vibrating at a low, predictable level of material survival. But the law of entrainment works both ways. Just as a dominant artificial frequency can drag you down into a state of cellular friction, a conscious return to the original scale can pull your body back into absolute cosmic alignment. In our next module, we are going to look at the ultimate destination of this collective friction, the weaponization of pop culture, to show you how the music industry was transformed into a mass psychological harvesting grid. The trap is mechanical, but once you understand how the gears turn, you can begin to break the synchronization. Now that you understand the raw physics of entrainment, we can finally pull back the curtain on the grand finale of this institutional trap.
We are
This is the weaponization of global pop culture. The architects of the 440 Hz matrix didn't just leave their synthetic frequency in a military laboratory or a boring government archive. They embedded it directly into the single most addictive, hypnotic delivery system on the face of the planet: the modern entertainment industry. By turning the global music industry into a mass psychological harvesting grid, they ensured that humanity would not only accept the frequency fence, but that we would actively pay to plug ourselves straight into it every single day. Think about the sheer scale of modern media consumption in this very timeline. Every single day, billions of human beings put on headphones, stream playlists, and watch videos on social media. Music is no longer just an occasional art form. It is a permanent background track to the entire human experience. Because every major record label, streaming platform, and studio operates strictly under the mandatory 440 Hz standard, pop culture has become a massive, automated distribution network for cellular friction. They took the ultimate tool for human liberation, the sacred geometry of sound, and inverted it into a mechanism for spiritual and biological containment. Let's look at the dark synergy between this synthetic frequency and the actual content of modern media. When you play music tuned to 440 Hz, you are already forcing the listener's nervous system into a state of low-level survival anxiety and high beta brainwave activity. Now, think about the lyrics, the themes, and the visual aesthetics that are heavily promoted across the charts today. They are filled with themes of betrayal, superficial consumerism, emotional trauma, and material obsession. This is not an accident. It is a perfect frequency match. A discordant musical scale requires a discordant emotional message to complete the loop. By pairing an anxious frequency with toxic programming, they create an incredibly powerful hypnotic state that locks the viewer inside a low-vibrational reality. This is the hidden mechanics of a planetary loosh harvest. When a human avatar is entrained to a fractured frequency and fed a steady diet of survival-based media, it generates a massive amount of dense, chaotic emotional energy. This energy, this constant state of background stress, envy, and disconnection, is precisely what feeds the parasitic structures running the matrix. They have built an invisible ecosystem where you are the battery. They use your favorite artists, your most addictive hooks, and your daily listening habits to keep your organic receiver from ever tuning back into the higher, pristine signals of the cosmic grid. They have turned our celebration of life into a ritual of mass energy drainage. This concludes our deep dive into the architecture of the hijack. We have traced the paper trail from corporate boardrooms, decoded the physics of cellular anxiety, mapped the collective gridlock of our cities, and exposed the pop culture harvesting machine. The trap has been completely laid bare. But this is exactly where the control system fails. Because once you understand the math, the history, and the physics of the frequency fence, you are no longer a blind participant in their loop. In our next phase, we are moving directly into Act 3, where we will step into the light of the original blueprint. We are going to decode the forbidden master keys of the 3, 6, and 9 cipher to show you exactly how to rebuild your internal geometry, reverse the entrainment, and reclaim your cosmic alignment. The exposure is complete, and the reclamation begins right now. To truly step into the reclamation phase of this broadcast, we have to look past the physical matrix and confront the layer where the final lockdown takes place. This is the grid over the ether. For generations, modern science has taught us to believe that space is empty, that the distance between you, your headphones, and the stars is just a hollow vacuum containing nothing at all. But ancient engineering traditions and advanced quantum physics tell a completely different story. Space is not empty. It is filled with a dense, fluid, and highly conductive medium known as the ether. The ether is the primordial fabric of reality. It is the living canvas through which all energy, thoughts, and frequencies must travel before they manifest into physical matter. Think of the ether as a pristine body of completely still water. When you broadcast a pure, natural harmonic frequency, like 432 Hertz, you are creating smooth, geometric ripples that travel through this medium with zero resistance. These ripples organize the fabric of space, allowing life force energy to flow freely into your local environment and your biological avatar. But the managers of the Matrix understood that if the ether remained clear, humanity would naturally wake up. They knew that human intention, amplified by a clean etheric field, could literally rewrite the physical plane. So, they constructed an invisible, artificial grid designed to completely choke out the channel. Look at the sky, the rooftops, and the landscapes of our world right now in this very timeline. They have blanketed the surface of the planet with an industrial web of cellular towers, satellite arrays, military radar systems, and high-voltage power lines. This is not just a standard communication network built for your convenience. It is a highly coordinated electromagnetic grid thrown directly over the ether. By constantly blasting this invisible fluid with a chaotic mix of microwaves, radio frequencies, and the synthetic 440 Hz standard, they have turned a pristine, clear ocean of energy into a turbulent, muddy swamp of static noise. Let's look at what this etheric grid does to your immediate reality. When you try to manifest a thought, access your intuition, or drop into a deep state of creative flow inside this environment, your internal signal has to fight through a massive wall of synthetic background noise. The etheric grid acts like a literal dampening field. It absorbs your vital energy, fractures your concentration, and scatters your intentional focus before it can ever compress into physical form. It is a system of total energetic containment. They don't need to control what you are thinking if they can use an invisible grid to neutralize the power of your thoughts the moment they leave your mind. This is the hidden war for the ether. They have overwritten the organic grid of the planet with a synthetic net designed to isolate human consciousness from the higher dimensions of creation. They have placed a ceiling over the room we are living in. But just like any artificial cage, this grid requires your unconscious compliance to maintain its hold on your biology. The moment you understand the math of the ether, you stop fighting the static, and you learn how to bypass it completely. To fully understand how this invisible trap operates on the ground, we have to stop looking at this as a passive historical shift and look at it as an active, ongoing theater of war. The 440 Hz standard was just the baseline layer. Built directly on top of that foundation is a highly weaponized infrastructure controlled by shadow factions within the military-industrial complex. This is the dark world of military abbreviations and black-budget contracts. What those in the deep research space refer to as MILABs, or military abductions, and hidden psychological operations. These black programs do not view sound as entertainment. They view the human nervous system as a battlefield, and they have spent decades perfecting the science of direct frequency warfare. To see the blueprint of this warfare, we have to look past civilian radio stations and look at the highly classified development of acoustic and electromagnetic weaponry. Since the mid-20th century, defense agencies across the globe have poured billions of dollars into projects like HARP and advanced psychological operations groups. These programs engineered systems capable of broadcasting ultra-low frequency waves across massive geographic areas. These are frequencies that sit completely below the threshold of human hearing. Yet they possess the mechanical capability to penetrate through concrete walls, steel grids, and the human skull. They discovered that by pulsing specific frequencies into a crowd or a city, they could instantly induce states of mass compliance, unexplainable panic, or physical exhaustion without firing a single bullet. Let's look at the literal mechanics of this tactical containment. Your brain operates on specific electrical frequencies, and your heart broadcasts a massive electromagnetic field. By utilizing global satellite networks, cell towers, and defense arrays, these military factions can blanket an entire zip code in a discordant frequency field. This field functions as an external electronic governor on human biology. If a population begins to wake up, if the collective consciousness in a specific region begins to rise and break out of the matrix, the system dials up the background static. They use weaponized acoustic entrainment to drop the entire population's brainwaves back into a low-vibrational, reactive state. They are literally jamming your internal spiritual transmission using military-grade electronic signals.
When the lights are low and jazz begins to play,
this is the reality of terrestrial hands. The music industry, the mainstream media, and the technological grids are not separate entities. They are highly integrated fronts for the same psychological warfare system. They have turned the very air you breathe into a dense, electronic soup designed to keep your avatar isolated, paranoid, and completely cut off from the organic blueprint of the cosmos. They don't need physical internment camps when they can lock your mind inside a frequency cage that you carry with you everywhere you go.
Now we lock the signal and harvest the yield.
This is a cold, calculated program of global mass containment executed by organizations that operate entirely in the shadows, completely hidden from public scrutiny or congressional oversight. This is the true depth of the conspiracy. And it is exactly why they fought so hard to standardize the world's frequency in 1953. They needed a predictable, uniform baseline, so their advanced weapon systems could interface with human biology without any unpredictable interference. But the moment you name the culprits, the moment you understand that your daily fatigue and anxiety are being actively projected into your field by external military arrays, the spell is broken. You stop blaming yourself for the internal friction, and you start treating it as an incoming signal that you have the power to reject. To fully grasp how deep this frequencies war really goes, we have to look past the terrestrial broadcast towers on our rooftops and look directly into the deep space infrastructure. The military-industrial complex on Earth is only the lower management of this system. Built completely above them is a highly classified, off-world military apparatus known in deep intelligence circles as the Dark Fleet.
Put it in the container.
This shadow network doesn't just manage physical spacecraft. They manage the electromagnetic background radiation of our entire local cluster. The 440 Hz standard forced onto our music is the planetary anchor for a much larger, synthetic transmission, beaming down into our atmosphere every single second. This is the Dark Fleet signal, and it is the literal master clock of the artificial matrix. Think about how a modern computer network operates. If you want thousands of individual devices to function as a single, coordinated system, they all have to sync up to a centralized server clock.
Move the core to the staging area. We are on schedule.
The human brain is no different. By utilizing highly advanced satellite arrays, cloaked orbital platforms, and hidden lunar transponders, This off-world faction broadcasts a constant, high-power carrier wave directly into the Earth's ionosphere. This signal acts like an invisible electronic net thrown over the entire planet. It is specifically calibrated to mimic the natural electromagnetic pulses of space, but with a highly toxic, artificial twist. It is designed to intercept your consciousness before your mind can ever connect with the pristine, organic frequencies of the deep cosmos. Let's look at the mechanical impact of this off-world transmission.
The Dark Fleet grid is now operational. We are maintaining ionospheric modulation.
Your biological avatar is an incredibly sensitive cosmic receiver, engineered to pick up the natural harmonic updates traveling through our solar system. When the Dark Fleet signal blasts through the atmosphere, it creates a massive wall of synthetic static that completely drowns out these organic cosmic updates. It forces the tiny crystal structures in your pineal gland to lock onto an artificial, low-vibrational cadence. Instead of experiencing your true, multidimensional nature, your brainwaves are forcibly entrained to a rigid state of material survival, competition, and deep psychological isolation. They have built an invisible electronic ceiling over the entire planet, ensuring that humanity remains completely blind to the larger cosmic awakening happening in our timeline. This is the true scale of the frequency fence. It is a highly coordinated, multi-layered system of total energetic containment that bridges terrestrial military operations directly with deep space shadow programs. Every piece of mainstream media you watch, and every commercial track you stream, is specifically engineered to vibrate in perfect sympathy with this off-world carrier wave. They have turned our global technological grid into a giant planetary relay station for the Dark Fleet signal, ensuring that no matter where you run on this Earth, your nervous system is constantly being pressured to comply with the rhythm of the prison. They don't need physical walls when they can use an off-world signal to lock your biology into an automated loop of material distraction and survival anxiety. But this advanced electronic cage has a critical vulnerability that the managers of the Matrix desperately try to hide from you. An artificial signal can only entrain your nervous system if your internal receiver remains completely unconscious and unaligned. The moment you expose the mechanics of this off-world transmission, the moment you understand that your background fatigue and inner disconnection are being actively projected into your field by a synthetic space grid, the power of the net completely dissolves. You stop falling for the synthetic static, and you begin the active process of turning off their channel. Now that the off-world infrastructure of the frequency fence has been completely exposed, the illusion loses its power over your biology. The managers of the Matrix spent decades building terrestrial towers and broadcasting the Dark Fleet's signal because they knew your nervous system is a prize worth fighting for. But they made a critical, fatal miscalculation in their engineering. An artificial signal can only control a receiver that remains completely unconscious of the transmission. The moment you understand the mechanics of the trap, you gain the absolute power to change the station. This is the moment we break the synchronization and begin reclaiming the internal scale. To understand how to reclaim your frequency, you have to look at the law of entrainment from a position of absolute power. Up until this point in the broadcast, we have looked at how the massive, high-powered commercial and military grids force your fragile nervous system to sync up with their discordant rhythm. But the physics of vibration contain a hidden law that they desperately try to hide from you. A pure, coherent frequency is mathematically more powerful than a chaotic, discordant one. Even if the artificial static is loud, a single, perfectly balanced harmonic note can instantly shatter the gridlock and force the surrounding space to reorganize itself into a state of order. You do not need to pull down their towers to defeat the system. You just need to turn your own biological avatar into a dominant oscillator of truth. Let's look at the literal mechanics of this internal reset. Reclaiming your scale begins with the intentional purification of the water inside your body. As we decoded in the first act, your biology is made of roughly 70% water, and these molecules act like a fluid hard drive, recording and mirroring every single vibration you expose them to. The moment you consciously stop feeding your system the toxic 440 Hz frequencies of mainstream pop culture and commercial media, the clumping in your blood begins to dissolve. By intentionally introducing the pure, organic tones of the 432 Hz scale and the sacred solfeggio sequences back into your daily environment, you are broadcasting a mathematical command that forces your cellular water to snap back into perfect geometric coherence. Think about what happens when your internal geometry is restored. The tiny calcite crystals inside your pineal gland, which were calcified and muted by the background static of the city grid, begin to vibrate freely once again. Your spine ceases to act as a compressed, defensive ladder and opens up as a clear, high-speed conductor of cosmic information. By changing the soundtrack of your personal timeline, you are physically tuning your internal antenna away from the Dark Fleet signal and locking it back into the natural 7.83 Hz heartbeat of the living planet. You are stepping completely out of the artificial loop of material survival and dropping back into the pristine, organic timeline of creation. This is the true meaning of biological sovereignty. You are no longer a passive battery being harvested by an invisible matrix. You are an active architect rewriting the wireframe of your local reality from the inside out. The frequency fence only works if you allow their static to dictate how you think, feel, and perceive. The moment you choose to vibrate to the math of the cosmos, the prison walls become completely irrelevant. You are becoming entirely unshakable. We have reached the absolute event horizon of this investigation. You have traced the weaponized timeline from its ancient origins, named the terrestrial hands executing the psychological warfare, and looked directly into the off-world infrastructure of the Dark Fleet signal. You have seen how they turned the global music industry into a mass energy trap, designed to lock your avatar into a permanent loop of survival anxiety. But all of that knowledge was simply the prerequisite to prepare you for this exact moment. This is the activation of the Unshakable Tone. This is the master key that ensures that once you step out of the frequency fence, no artificial net on Earth or beyond can ever pull you back into the dark. To understand the mechanics of the Unshakable Tone, you must realize that you are not a fragile entity trying to survive inside a hostile matrix. You are a localized point of the absolute source consciousness, wrapped inside a highly advanced biological receiver. When you consciously align your mind, your cellular water, and your heart's electromagnetic field with the sacred geometry of the 3, 6, and 9 cipher, you are no longer running a passive signal that can be easily overridden by cell towers or satellite grids. You become a broadcasting tower of your own. The Unshakable Tone is the state of absolute internal coherence, where your biology vibrates so powerfully to the natural laws of creation that any discordant frequency entering your field is instantly shattered and forced to dissolve. Think about the profound reality of this sovereign state. When you walk into a crowded modern city, a sterile corporate building, or a high-stress environment, you are no longer absorbing the background static of the 440 Hz gridlock. Because your internal antenna is locked into the natural 7.83 Hz heartbeat of the living planet and the pristine math of the cosmic clock, your field becomes completely impenetrable. You don't have to fight the matrix. Your very presence acts like a dominant geometric chord that cleanses the etheric space around you. You are completely immune to their pop culture programming, completely unaffected by their weaponized anxiety, and entirely detached from their loops of material distraction. You are running on the organic timeline, and you are completely untouchable. The prison walls have not collapsed because of an external war. They have vanished because you chose to change the station inside your own skin. The frequency fence has lost its grip. The net over the ether has torn wide open, and your biological avatar is now operating as a wide-open receiver for the higher light of creation. The cosmic hijack is officially over in your reality. The illusion has run its course, the noise has been stripped away, and the original architecture of your power is fully restored. You are the music, you are the geometry, and you are the unmovable center around which your entire universe revolves. Stand firm in your alignment, hold your frequency, and never let a synthetic world dictate the rhythm of your soul. But breaking through the frequency fence is only the first step of the awakening. Now that your internal antenna is completely clear of the synthetic noise, you are finally ready to receive the ultimate blueprint of creation. The architects didn't just hijack our sounds. They hid the absolute truth of our cosmic origin.
We will see it all in the law of one.
In our next major investigative broadcast, we are leaving the mechanics of the prison behind to step directly into the deepest, most heavily guarded transmission in galactic history. We are entering the realm of the Ra material, stripping away the distortions of modern religion and decoding the absolute mathematics of the law of one. We are going to map out the density transitions of consciousness, expose how our solar system is moving through a literal cosmic harvest right now, in this very timeline, and analyze how the illusion of separation was engineered to keep you from realizing that you are the infinite creator experiencing itself. You have learned how to clean the glass of your reality. In the next phase, we are going to show you what lies on the other side of the window. This is Detune's reality, where we expose the forbidden blueprints and return to the pristine coding of creation. The frequency is reclaimed, the antenna is wide open, and the true cosmic harvest begins in our next transmission. Stay alert, stay aligned.